Netflix just shook up the entire entertainment industry with one single announcement. Yes, Netflix is set to acquire Warner Brothers following the separation of Discovery Global for a total enterprise value of $82.7 billion. That is a massive, massive chunk of money, and that's for a good reason, because this is a big buy. Yes, there's been a bidding war happening for quite a while now, and it looks like Netflix has won. And now, yes, it does note here that there is a separation happening here, and Warner Brothers for a while now has been essentially taking its different divisions and sort of separating them, television, streaming and all that kind of stuff. And we'll get into exactly what that is here in a minute. I do want to stress here that this is not 100% yet. This still has to be going through a lot of regulations and whatnot. The government itself has to approve of it. But we all know how this works. We all know how this works. It just depends on who Netflix kind of gets chummy with in the government. Stuffs a little bit of money in there. I'm just saying, it's a joke, by the way. Netflix, please don't come after me. Stuff a little money in there, and they'll get it approved. But yes, let's actually look at the announcement thing here. They had a little slide they went through during the announcement. And yes, they've stated that they're acquiring all these different divisions within Warner Brothers itself, including the film and studios, of course, the established franchises, HBO and HBO Max, which is a huge thing here, by the way. We'll get in that in a minute. Their games and consumer product experiences, some top franchises, and TV production. Now, as per usual with these type of announcements, in order to probably butter up the government a little bit more, they state, don't worry, Netflix expects to maintain Warner Brothers' current businesses. Don't worry, all the things that Warner Brothers currently doing with film and all that kind of stuff, we're not going to destroy it. We're not going to just consolidate all their stuff into Netflix streaming service and just monopolize it. Don't worry, nobody's getting fired. Happens every single time. I love buyouts because they always state that, and I think it's probably due to antitrust laws and not wanting to look like a monopoly. They always claim they're not touching anything. Don't worry. 2 years later, firings start happening, consolidations happening, mergings happening, all that kind of stuff. But yes, they're claiming they're not going to change anything for a while now. Now, yes, a lot of people are wondering, Andrew, why are you even covering this? This has nothing to do with anime. It does. It has a little bit to do with anime. Not a massive amount, but there's going to be some changes that I think will come from this whole situation here. Like I said earlier, one of the things being HBO and HBO Max. Let's cover that right now. If we look over to HBO and HBO Max, yes, you'll see here, one of the big properties they have on that platform is, of course, a lot of the Ghibli films. These used to be all on Netflix, and at some point they start kind of dropping off of there. You'll probably see with this whole buyout, things like the Ghibli films might actually start popping up onto, Netflix once again. Now, there is one stipulation here, is that in some cases, whenever a license is given out for a property, they do put restrictions on which platforms they can actually put it on. They might stipulate it can only go on HBOMax.com and not necessarily be able to go on Netflix. I think Crunchyroll and Funimation had that problem when they were doing the whole merging aspect, when, of course, Crunchyroll was bought. A lot of the properties coming from Funimation to Crunchyroll, I think there was a slow process there. One, because, yes, they had to adjust the formats of all the video and make it usable on the player on Crunchyroll. But I think there was some cases where some properties weren't allowed to be on other streaming platforms. So it just depends on what the contract they have for each of these properties is. But I would imagine all these would eventually go onto Netflix again, based on this buyout. There's no doubt in my mind HBO Max is going to get destroyed after this, because there's no need to have two different streaming platforms. Now, the question that a lot of people have is the possibility of there being HBO subcategory within Netflix. Like, you have Netflix and you have to pay a little extra for HBO Max Netflix, and this stuff will be in there. There's a lot of speculations happening right now, and that could be technically one that will actually happen. So outside of that, there's obviously going to be a lot of anime that's going to be on HBO Max that will now potentially be on Netflix. And when that actually happens, that's the big question mark there. So that is one thing that is anime involving that is going to happen here. The other thing that's going to be happening here, of course, is what does Warner Brothers themselves have to do with anime? Quite a bit. For those who don't know, yes, we do have Warner Brothers Japan is actively involved in the production of anime. So a lot of anime is being produced by Warner Brothers through the Warner Brothers Japan branch. Now, I will say nothing in the announcement say anything about Warner Brothers International or specifically Asia/Warner Brothers Japan. The assumption is that those are included in this buyout, but they haven't specifically said anything about it. And yes, of course, Warner Brothers is going through that whole split before. The assumption's there, though. If Warner Brothers Japan is included in this buyout, that means that, yes, a lot of what currently is under the production of Warner Brothers Japan is going to be under the ownership of Netflix. Now, there's a few things here that I think there's a lot of misinformation going around about, so I want to clarify that. What does this mean for all these properties that Warner Brothers Japan is in the production for? It's a mixed bag here. Anything that Warner Brothers Japan has actively licensed out to the West will remain in effect. So if Crunchyroll has licensed, say, Mob Psycho 100, it's not like suddenly it's going to get pulled from Crunchyroll and now it's going to be on Netflix. It doesn't work like that. The other thing is that not everything that Warner Brothers Japan has produced is in the ownership of Warner Brothers Japan. There's a lot of cases with things like Mob Psycho 100 that they're not the full ownership of it. There's a lot of people that were actively involved in it. Now, Warner Brothers Japan could have the licensing agreement. Like, even though all these individuals were a part of it, they could have the rights to be able to license it out, but we don't have all those details. Granted, most of the stuff under Warner Brothers Japan is already on Netflix. You have like JoJo's Bizarre Adventures already on there. Record of Ragnarok, I believe, is already on there. A lot of these properties are already there, but it does mean that probably in the future, a lot of this stuff is going to be most likely going to be exclusively going to Netflix. If again, this division is a part of that buyout. But I just want to be clear that everything that currently is being licensed out, like Tonikawa, Mob Psycho, Is It Wrong to Pick Girls in the Dungeon? That's on High Dive. Those licenses will still remain. It's just going to be probably most likely once those licenses expire, it's more likely to go exclusively to Netflix. If, again, who all's involved with the production of the title itself, which does include Warner Brothers Japan, all agree to that if they all have a stake in the licensing of the product. In the end, I will say, I don't think this buyout's really going to change much when it comes to anime itself. I know that some people have a lot of fears around the idea of theatrical releases because typically when Netflix gets involved in something, that they produce something, they want it on their platform. They're not really looking to have it, put in a theater. There's a lot of concerns overall outside of anime that this buyout could mean that a lot of the theatrical releases of Warner Brothers stuff will not even happen anymore, that it's going to harm Hollywood itself and box offices. But for anime specifically, I don't think much is going to change. It's really just going to mean that a lot of these properties, once their licenses go away, it could potentially end up on Netflix. What little Warner Brothers Japan is even producing anymore is going to be more likely to go to Netflix. Just anime itself is not really going to be impacted that much, besides what's currently on HBO and HBO Max potentially going over to Netflix. Anyways, that's my take on this whole situation. Again, if it even happens, I think for the most part, the ripple effects and the damages that this whole buyout could have, if it does go through, is going to be more for Western properties, not necessarily anime. But I just want to get people clued in on the effects of anime itself and the properties that everybody's now claiming is going to be on Netflix. Not really going to happen that way. We'll see in the future, though. But anyways, that's my thoughts on it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you found it informative. If you did, hit the like button down below. If you like this content and you want to support it, become a member. Until next time, y'all take care.